Good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce the speaker for today's session, Mr. Setu Madhav Kulkarni. Setu, as he is fondly called, is an alumnus of KLSGIT, having completed his graduation in computer science in 2002. He started his career as a quality control engineer with NDS in 2003 and is currently the Vice President of Product Management at Venafi, San Francisco Bay Area. He specializes in product management and strategy leadership for security, SaaS, and developer-centric businesses. He is also a speaker at industry events and investor conferences, company ARPR spokesperson, and a podcast host. Setu will be Setu has chosen the title of cybersecurity as a career, so he'll be focusing his session today on that title. So over to you, Setu.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
You can. All right.
Yes.
And you can hear me all right as
yes.
well?
Yes.
Okay. Good. So thank you for the introduction, ma'am. I'm super happy to be here. I always love to be back at Gokte. It's almost like in the last it's been since 1998. So 22, did I get that math right? Yeah, 22 years. Every opportunity that I've had to go back to Belgaum, to Gokte, I've never missed it. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. And second of all, I'm very happy to be doing this session. Now, what I want to talk about in the next, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes is about cybersecurity as a career. Now, if you had asked me when I started my computer science course at Gokte, would I ever be in cybersecurity? In 1998, those two words were never even said together. Cyber and security were two different words. Look at what has happened in the last 22 years. They've become one word. So cybersecurity as we know it today did not exist 22 years ago. Cybersecurity 22 years ago was something that people did in defense, right? There were covert and overt cybersecurity operations that were conducted, but it was not as mainstream as we see it today. But we're in 2022, and as I look ahead next 15, 20 years, cybersecurity amongst a handful of other professions is going to become a major career option for everybody as you guys especially finish up your course and start looking at options to further your careers. Now, today, the idea here is to walk you through what are the various options to get into cybersecurity, and also give you a little bit of background into why cybersecurity is such a hot career option, and how by choosing cybersecurity, you can pretty much future-proof yourself. Think about your careers for the next 15, 20, 25 years. If you decide to choose cybersecurity as a career, it can actually offer a very rich and rewarding career for anyone who wants to take it up. So with that said, let's kind of jump into the presentation. So first and foremost, let's just look at the size of the opportunity, just sheer numbers. We'll share these slides with you, and there's a source for this statistic. But in 2021, last year, the year just ended, there were 3.5 million job openings in 2021. Right? In 2013, there were 1 million positions available for cybersecurity. And in 8 years, that number has grown by 350%. Now, what's kind of important to note is that those 3.5 million jobs or positions were not all filled. there are not 3.5 million cybersecurity professionals in the world, right? There are 3.5 million positions, but there are not 3.5 million people who know cybersecurity and who can be effective in the cybersecurity domain. So by sheer numbers, if you look at the size of the opportunity for interested and qualified individuals, it's huge. You just have to make up your mind to become a cybersecurity expert. And there is a career, a very rich and rewarding career waiting for you. Now, today, when I look around and I talk to so many of my friends, my colleagues in the industry, they can hire all kinds of engineers. If you want a developer, you will get developers by the dozens. If you want quality engineers, you'll get quality engineers by the dozen. If you want user experience designers, you may not get them by the dozen, but you can still get people who want to focus on user experience and product design. But when you're trying to hire somebody in cybersecurity, it is so difficult to find an individual to hire. So from an industry perspective as well, cybersecurity is a very key gap in the industry. A lot of cybersecurity professionals are required, not enough are present. So that's something I'd like all of you to keep in your mind as you think about your careers. You also want to look at what career will not only be very interesting, but will give you longevity in your careers. And cybersecurity is one of those careers with 3.5 million job openings in 2021 and only poised to grow from here. Now, spoke about the sheer number of open positions. Let's also talk about how important this position is. It's one thing to have a lot of openings, but it's another thing to have openings or opportunities or career options in a critical area of society, right? At the end of the day, if you have friends or family members who've chosen to become doctors, just think about when they start their doctor or the doctoral career, they have to take an oath, the Hippocratic oath, to save lives and to practice medicine ethically, because becoming a doctor is such a critical element of society. Now, the reason I pulled this slide up, this is a survey from the World Economic Forum that was done not too long ago. I think this was done in the second half of last year. Just look at how cybersecurity has become a global risk alongside weather events, climate, infectious diseases, mental health, right? Just think about all those big topics. You hear about glaciers melting, you hear about cross-border terrorism. We've all lived through and living through COVID today. And when you think about those global risks, the fact that cybersecurity appears in one of those global risks, that should tell you how important cybersecurity is for the society as a whole. I always think about how my parents live in Belgaum, and I always think about how in the last 2.5 years, the only way I have been able to connect and keep up with my parents is through applications, right? We do a Zoom call, or we do a WhatsApp call, or we do a FaceTime. We send each other emails, we'll send each other pictures. And that's how we have really made sure that through this COVID crisis, we can continue to operate as a society. And that has been enabled by IT or information technology. And when information technology becomes such a fundamental part of the social fabric, any risk to IT becomes a social risk, right? And that's the reason why you see cybersecurity as a global risk today. The point I'm trying to make is, while there are many, many opportunities in the cybersecurity industry, make no mistake, it is also one of the most important jobs to do. If there's a shortage of doctors, you could almost say that the shortage of cybersecurity experts can create a disastrous effect the way shortage of doctors could create. So again, it's not just about the short term, it's also about what's going to happen in the medium term. If you look at the medium term, 2 to 5 years, again, cybersecurity failure is identified as a great risk to society as a whole. And as you go forward and look at the long-term future, cybersecurity shows up, although they call it adverse tech advances, but cybersecurity is a critical component of that risk. So what I want you to take away from today's conversation, a couple things so far. One, there's a great opportunity. There's a large void that needs to be filled, but it's not yet another opportunity. If you decide to become a cybersecurity professional, you will be meeting one of the biggest gaps that we've seen as a society in the last 10 years and for the next 50 to 100 years to come. Cybersecurity is going to be the next frontier for securing the society as a whole. So I think I've made the case that we must act, and you must act. You are the future of IT, right? You're just starting your career, so you're thinking about starting your career in information technology. And I think it's incumbent upon you, and it's incumbent upon everyone around you to enable you to play your part in the society. And one way to do that is motivating you to become a cybersecurity professional. Why is this important? Yes, large number of opportunities, social risk, but what does this really mean? What it really means is there is an exponential rise in applications. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? We can keep talking about cybersecurity as a broad concept, but what does it mean from a day-to-day point of view? There's an exponential rise in applications. Hopefully all of you are paying attention to the slides and not to your phones, but if you're on your phones, just flick through your phones and try to count the number of applications you have on your phones. I bet you have at least 100 applications on your phone today. And on your computer, you're probably using a browser. In your browser, you probably have another 20 tabs open with a variety of different applications, all essential applications to help you continue living your lives. So there is an exponential rise in applications. Whether it's you, your parents, your friends, everybody is using software, internet-enabled or mobile-enabled applications hundreds of times every day to get their jobs done. At the same time, there is also an exponential rise in the incentives for bad actors. Hackers around the world are looking for opportunities to get their hands on your data, because data is the new gold, right? So if hackers can get access to your mobile phone numbers, to your Aadhaar numbers, to your tax numbers, to your names, to your addresses, to your bank details, that's all valuable information. And by the way, the incentives for bad actors, especially with cryptocurrency coming into the picture, has increased exponentially. Today, there are companies that are promoting ransomware as a service. Just think about it. You can now get a platform, you can now get a subscription to a platform that allows you to develop ransomware and spread ransomware across the world. And in return, you get incentivized because you can hold someone ransom by exfiltrating that data and holding that data hostage. So the incentives for bad actors is very high. And we've already spoken about the exponential rise in skill shortage from a cybersecurity perspective. Now just take those three trends: exponential rise in applications, exponential rise in incentives for bad actors, and exponential rise in the shortage of people in cybersecurity. That has a combinatorial effect, and it creates an exponential rise in risk for society as a whole. That's a big problem to solve. It's a scary problem to solve. And all of us are affected by it. Make no mistake, you are, your siblings are, your friends are, your parents are, your institutions are, your homes are, your banks are. You are living in a world where there is cyber risk everywhere. Now, you don't feel it because you've not yet been hacked. But the day you get hacked, you start feeling it. 3 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago, half of the United States population, they lost their social security numbers to bad actors. Right? Half of the population, 150 million people, now have their social security numbers out there in the open, in the dark web. Social security numbers are the lifeblood of the society, because much like Aadhaar numbers, social security numbers, if you have the social security number of a person, you can get access to whatever you want. Their tax records, right? Their credit card information, their banking information. So my point here is, it's only a matter of time that you, your loved ones, the people you know, somebody will get affected by a cybercrime. So that's the reason why I think we must act, and you must act, because you are the future of the information technology world. Now, what can you do to act? And that's what we'll speak about today. That's what the thrust of today's presentation is. What can you do to act? You're all developers, or you want to have careers in development, software development. You can start developing secure apps, meaning the next time you write a line of code, you must examine whether that line of code is secure or not. Did you introduce a security vulnerability because you wrote bad code? Now, today in 2022, there is no excuse. There is no excuse for writing insecure code. 10 years ago, you could argue that developers did not know about cybersecurity risks. And therefore, when they wrote code, they didn't have to think about cybersecurity as a key feature of what they were developing. But today, if a developer is writing insecure code, they have to be blamed. So my point here is, what can you do to act? What is in your control? You can start writing more secure apps. You can also defend users, right? That is in your control as well. So if you become a cybersecurity professional, one of the things that you can do is you can defend users. Think about Instagram or Facebook. They have billions of end users. One vulnerability on Instagram or Facebook can potentially affect 1 billion users. And as cybersecurity professionals, you can help those billions of users by defending them. So in this simple equation that I have in front of you, there are two elements or two variables in this equation that you have the potential to control. Applications are rising in numbers exponentially. So as you become software developers, you better write more secure apps. And there is a huge skill shortage in the cybersecurity industry. You could participate in cybersecurity to defend users. The one thing that you don't have control over is the bad actors. they are the enemies. So the bottom line is that if you can put yourself at the intersection of writing and developing secure applications and at the same time defending the end users of applications, I think you would have done your part and you would have acted responsibly. Now, let me give you a quick example of why being aware of what you're developing as a software developer is important. Many of you may be too young to even remember what Log4j is, but I encourage you to go have a look at Log4j. Log4j was a very popular Java package. It still is. Java still is the most popular programming language, although that's declining. But having said that, Log4j is a great example of a very, very popular module or off-the-shelf component that Java users or Java developers use to write log statements, right? It's a logging framework. Now, Log4j, you can pretty much assume that any and every piece of Java code that has ever been written has included Log4j as a library, as a framework to enable easy, seamless logging. Now, Java applications today, they sit on computers, they sit on mobile phones, they sit on satellites, they sit in cars. Java is everywhere. Although it's not the most popular programming language choice today, but Java is one of the most popular installed packages across the world, not just on computers, but also on devices in cars, in IoT devices, on your phones, on your watches, everywhere. Now, recently, a few months ago, there was a critical vulnerability that was detected in Log4j. Right? Log4j is a software package that was developed by some software engineers. That software package got included in millions and millions of consumer products. So a handful of developers trying to do the right thing wrote Log4j to simplify other developers' log management tasks, but inadvertently introduced a vulnerability that is now propagated to millions of consumer products. Now, yes, there is a risk to people, right? There's a risk to individuals. But when you look at the collective risk is so large that government organizations like the Federal Trade Commission, they have started imposing huge fines on companies that don't mitigate this risk. So as a developer, you might end up writing 10 lines of code, and those 10 lines of code might be included or incorporated in hundreds of applications. And if there's a vulnerability, it can create risks that are measured in millions of dollars. So, for example, when the social security numbers for 150 million consumers was exfiltrated due to Apache Struts vulnerability, Equifax was asked to pay $700 million to the Federal Trade Commission so that they can settle all the actions that individuals had brought against them. So my point here is you have a responsibility to act. Even if you don't get into the cybersecurity industry, you must act, and you must act responsibly. As you're developing software security has to become a top of mind concern for all of you. Now, what I'll do in the next section is I'll walk you through the career options that are available to you when you want to participate in defending end users, and also talk about career options that are available to you when you're developing secure apps. Those are the two things that are in our control, right? We can defend end users and we can write better apps. And therein lie all the career opportunities. So first, let's focus on a few career options that are available to you if you want to defend users. The first career option that is available to you right now is ethical hacking. Right? When you think about hacking, you always think about a bad actor. Right? A bad actor or a black hat hacker is someone who goes and exploits vulnerabilities in applications to benefit from those vulnerabilities. They want to exfiltrate data, they want to hold on to data, they want to hold you hostage, and they want to get monetary or some other gain out of it. Bad actors can also be state-sponsored actors, right? For example, there are a lot of bad actors in North Korea, right? North Korea is known for hacking into other states, trying to hold them hostage. So as you think about ethical hacking as an option, ethical hacking is all about finding and reporting exploitable vulnerabilities in applications. And you can do this today. Even as students, you can become an ethical hacker and start contributing to the cybersecurity world. There are platforms like Bugcrowd, HackerOne, Synack that allow you to become ethical hackers starting today, right? As you are going through your degree programs, and whether you plan to pursue higher education or not, you still can become an ethical hacker if you have the mindset to do so. Now, ethical hacking is all about finding vulnerabilities, exploitable vulnerabilities, and reporting them to companies. And in return, you also get rewarded. There are platforms like Bugcrowd, HackerOne, and Synack. I'd encourage all of you to go have a look at these platforms. And if you have the skill and the will, these platforms enable you to become ethical hackers today. Now, what are the skills you need to develop to become an ethical hacker? You need to become a white hat hacker or an ethical hacker. And to do that, you need to start understanding how applications work and how applications can be exploited. There are many open source tools that are available today that allow you to manipulate applications. A great example is many hackers use the URL. When you go to a website, you go to the address bar, you look at the URL, you can manipulate the URL, for example, to start exploiting web applications. And there are a lot of skills and techniques that you can develop to become a white hat hacker. You can focus on that. You can develop offensive security skills. And the idea here is you're trying to penetrate internet and mobile applications with the idea of finding exploitable vulnerabilities that you're going to report. The key here is that you find the vulnerabilities and you report them back. You do not exploit those vulnerabilities. Now, one of the places where you can start learning about offensive security and white hat hacking is on the Bugcrowd website. Bugcrowd actually offers a university, an online university. It's free for everyone. You can go to bugcrowd.com and look at their university, and you can learn how to become a white hat or an ethical hacker. Now, like I said, becoming an ethical hacker is a very rewarding career. There are ethical hackers today on Bugcrowd, on HackerOne, and on Synack, the three big platforms that make in excess of $500,000 a year. Now, everybody doesn't make that kind of money, but the really good ethical hackers, irrespective of where they live, most ethical hackers, most successful ethical hackers actually are in Europe and in Asia. And they make a ton of money doing what they do. As you can see, there are bug bounty programs that almost every organization sets up. If you're Brave, I'm sure many of you use the Brave browser. Brave, the software company themselves, has set up a bug bounty program. The bug bounty program is set up through HackerOne, as you can see there. And the bug bounty program basically invites ethical hackers to find and report vulnerabilities. And just look at the kinds of rewards you get. If you report a low priority vulnerability, maybe you were able to figure out how to deface a website, you get paid out $100. You might find a critical vulnerability in the application, and the reward for critical vulnerabilities is equally high. In the case of Brave, they would pay you out $1,000. Now, Brave is a browser. It's a free open source browser. But think about Tesla, right? The risk that Tesla has due to vulnerabilities in their software is very, very, very grave. The car itself runs entirely on software, right? If you can hack into Tesla's software, you can pretty much control any car that you want that's on the road today. That's a scary thought, right? What if there was a bad actor who was able to penetrate the Tesla software system, which is completely online, and exploit a vulnerability and cause a car crash, cause a car to shut down in the middle of the road? There's so much damage that can be done. And what you can see in the Tesla bug bounty program is that the rewards for finding critical vulnerabilities is much higher, up to $15,000 per vulnerability. To be able to become an ethical hacker and start your career, so to say, in ethical hacking does not take a lot. You just need to be creative. You need to be super resourceful as far as software is concerned. And you can make a very good career being an ethical hacker. So that's the first career option, to become, to start participating in cybersecurity, right? To become an ethical hacker. There are 3 or 4 different platforms. You can also become a part of red teams. A lot of organizations today, let's say Johnson & Johnson, right? Or Procter & Gamble. A lot of these organizations today employ red teams. They form an ethical hacking team within the company so that they can start finding vulnerabilities in the software that they use themselves. Instead of waiting for somebody to come and tell them about the vulnerability, they can find these vulnerabilities themselves. So the options, if you become an ethical hacker, are many. There are crowdsourced options where you can participate in bug bounty programs. You can also join a company and become a part of their red team. The red team is a team of hackers within an organization that try to find vulnerabilities before they get reported by someone else. Now, the second opportunity that you can pursue to defend users is becoming an information security engineer. Now, as an ethical hacker, you're finding vulnerabilities. As an information security engineer, you're implementing security controls to prevent breaches through the vulnerabilities that are found. As an ethical hacker, you would have found a vulnerability. Somebody has got to go and take the mitigative measures to prevent those vulnerabilities. And that is really the job of an information security engineer. The information security engineer has a variety of tools that they implement to prevent breaches, right? I'll give you a very simple example. Think about antiviruses. If you have a computer that has an antivirus running, somebody has to manage that antivirus. It's an endpoint. Your computer is an endpoint. Somebody has got to install the antivirus on your computer if you're working in an organization. Who does that? The information security engineer does that. If you're using a firewall, somebody has to write firewall rules. Who does that? The information security engineer does that. If you're storing a lot of data, you need to make sure that data encryption is being used and configured. Who does that? An information security engineer does that. So information security engineering is about implementing security controls to prevent breaches. Now, the opportunities are many fold, right? If you go to LinkedIn and look for information security engineer job openings, you'll probably find thousands of them. The opportunities are in information security teams. Organizations set up information security teams, so you can go become a part of that information security team. You can go and join a managed security service. There are organizations today that provide security as a managed service. Remember, there are 3.5 million job openings. There are not enough people for every company to hire out there. So what a lot of companies do is they go to managed security services providers and they sign a contract with them so that the managed security services provider can provide security or cybersecurity to their companies. So you can go look for a job in a managed security services company, or you can go to a system integrator like an Infosys, a TCS, a Capgemini. All of them have cybersecurity practices. So if you decide to become an information security engineer, this is where there are the most number of advertised positions: information security teams, managed security teams, and system integrators like TCS, Infosys, Capgemini, Deloitte. All of them have cybersecurity practices. Now, what are the skills you need to develop? If you're going to do, or if you're going to pursue ethical hacking as a career, you just need to be wicked smart, right? You just need to know how to creatively exploit applications. You really do not need formal training. You just need to be someone who has the knack of digging in and finding vulnerabilities. But when it comes to information security engineering, there's a bit more formal education that is required. I would almost call it learning rather than education. Education means somebody has to teach you, but I'd almost call it learning. You will have to go learn security principles, the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Very, very established security principles. You must go learn these security principles. The principles are very simple to remember: CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You must learn access control concepts. Access control is all about who can access what data, when, and where. Right? Access control is a critical component of cybersecurity. Again, something that you will need to learn if you want to become an information security engineer. You also should learn network security. How do you set up a network so that it is secure? And you should also learn about security operations. What do you do when you're breached? Now, to enter into information security and become an information security engineer, you may not have the experience, but it definitely helps if you have the knowledge, right? Even if you have the principles and the knowledge that you need, it'll become easier for you to pursue a career in information security. One great resource is ISC². Go to the ISC² website and you will find a ton of material that you can start perusing to become an information security engineer. There are a ton of certifications, there are a ton of courses, and choose wisely. Find the right course for yourself. Invest time, energy, and money in getting that course and becoming certified. And you should then be able to pursue a career in information security engineering. Now, there is another novel opportunity to defend end users. And that opportunity is to build or develop security products that can prevent breaches. McAfee, again, a very trite example. McAfee is a endpoint protection product. It's a malware or a virus prevention product. It's a software product at the end of the day. So there is a humongous market for security products. Security products are what are used by information security engineers. We just spoke about information security engineers. Information security engineers are using security products to defend users. So you can also build security products. Again, a great opportunity, but it requires a lot more creativity and a lot more rigor and effort to be able to build a cybersecurity product. Now, at a high level, there are three kinds of products that you can build. You can build discovery products. Can you go discover what is at risk? A great example is there are tools that are available today that can help you go discover expired certificates on the internet, right? If any of you has ever built a website, you know that if you want to implement security or transport layer security, TLS, on your website, you need to procure a certificate and install it. And the certificate itself comes with an expiration date. Once the certificate is expired, there's a risk to the application. So you can go build a product that goes and discovers certificates on the internet if you give it a domain name, just as an example, right? So there is a great market for discovery type products. What if you could build a product that discovers all the running instances of a particular container across Amazon, Azure, and GCP? How cool would that be, right? You're able to go discover all the running instances of any given container image across the three major cloud providers. That's an example of a discovery product that helps you determine what the attack surface is, right? What's the attack surface that is available to a hacker to attack? You can also build scanning products. Let's take the example of the container. What if you could build a product that can scan a running container and provide you information about all the vulnerabilities that exist in that container? So that's the second kind of security product you can develop. Scanning, whether you scan a container, you scan an API, you scan a mobile application, you scan a web application, you scan a computer, you scan a mobile phone, you scan a watch to find vulnerabilities. And the third kind of product you can build is a protection product. Now that you've found a vulnerability, can you protect against that vulnerability? Can you build a protection module for a container? Can you build a protection module for a mobile phone? So again, the opportunities to build security products are many, but if you wanted a place to start thinking, I would think about discovery, scanning, and protection as three distinct kinds of products you can build. Now, what are the skills that you need? First and foremost, you need to have deep domain expertise on what you want to secure. If you want to secure containers, you better know how containers work. If you want to secure APIs, you better be the best at writing APIs. If you want to secure mobile phones, you should know the ins and outs of how a mobile phone and mobile applications work. Second, you must also get some security expertise on your chosen area of focus. Let's say you wanted to write a container scanning product. Not only do you need to know about containers, but you also need to know about how containers can be exploited. So this is where you must have multi-domain expertise, choose a focus area, learn about what the security constraints and vulnerabilities can be. And then it's about how good a coder you are. Make no mistake, any new product you develop, whether it's in security or not, it has to be on the cloud. And everything today requires huge data processing, analytics, machine learning. So building security products is difficult, but it's also one of the most rewarding opportunities or career paths you can take. If you have a small team, if you have an idea, you can divide and conquer, and you can build some really cool security products along the way. Okay, so we've spoken about defense, right? We spoke about how you can become an ethical hacker to find vulnerabilities. We spoke about how you can become an information security engineer to protect from vulnerabilities by implementing security controls. And we spoke about how you can build products to help defend the users. Now let's switch gears and talk about the first aspect, which was building better applications from the get-go. So as you start your careers in software and in information technology, whether you choose to go down the information security path or not, you are responsible for security. It may not occur or appear in your job title, but make no mistake, if you write insecure code, you will have a very short career in IT. So every software developer out there today is being held responsible for writing better code. Now, where you can have an unfair advantage is when you become a developer who is very security aware. Your mission then is to develop applications that are resilient to breaches in the first place. When you write a line of code, you examine that line of code from a security point of view and make sure that it is robust and does not suffer from security vulnerabilities. Now, the opportunities here are many. Today, in the world, there are maybe 50 million self-identified software developers, but not many have cybersecurity as a core skill. So even if you're going to become a full stack engineer, a site reliability engineer, if you're going to practice DevOps or DevSecOps, or you want to get into a product security role, you must have concepts and experience with application security. How do you write better code? How do you write code that is resilient to breaches? You must also learn about application security testing tools, right? There are some core concepts like static analysis, dynamic analysis that you should learn about. And the final piece is automation. Testing your application for cybersecurity, it takes a long time and it's difficult, but there are tools available out there to you as a developer that can help you test your code. And the best way to write tests is automated tests. So let me recap what you need to become a secure developer, right? You need to write applications that are resilient to breaches. Whether you become a full stack engineer, or a site reliability engineer or a DevOps engineer, or you become an engineer in the product security team, you need to know how to write code. You also need to know application security concepts. You need to learn application security testing tools like dynamic analysis and static analysis tools. And you need to be super good at automation. So that's really the recipe for becoming a good developer who can build security into the applications that they write. Okay, so what are some of the resources that are available to you to becoming a good developer? Now, if you have not already read about the OWASP top 10, I would highly encourage you to invest a lot of time in learning about the OWASP top 10. The OWASP top 10 is a fantastic resource to learn about most common security vulnerabilities. Look at the first one. The first one is called broken access control. You remember we spoke about how access control is one of the skills you need to learn as an information security engineer? Absolutely. It is one of the most common vulnerabilities that exists in applications. Cryptographic failures, right? Are you encrypting data in the right way or not? Injection, SQL injection still remains one of the most popular attack vectors for bad actors. There are 10 in the OWASP top 10, obviously, and each one of them, I would highly encourage you to study them. As you study each one of these OWASP top 10 issues, what you will learn is how these vulnerabilities come into being in the first place. What are the mistakes that developers commit that result in these vulnerabilities? So this is a great resource for you to learn, and it's also very channeled, right? It's not about going and reading books after books after books or spending hours on the internet figuring out everything there is to about security. It's about taking a very focused approach. It's about going through each one of these OWASP top 10, understanding them, understanding how they occur, what are the mistakes developers make due to which these issues occur, and then developing the skills to identify these issues and prevent them in the first place. So great resource for you to go and start your career, or great resource for you to go and invest time in to start your career in secure software development. Now, life's too short, and AppSec and application security is tough. And that's the reason why there are tons of cheat sheets on OWASP, right? If you go to the OWASP website, there are tons of cheat sheets, and I absolutely love these cheat sheets because they give you a very quick but very detailed set of information around the topics that you're looking for. For example, if you're writing an application that accesses a database, you can go to the cheat sheet and they will tell you exactly the kinds of things you should be testing for and avoiding when you're interacting with the database. Instead of having to go through books after books after books to learn about what's the right method or the right approach, you can actually go to the cheat sheet, and the cheat sheet will give you tons of examples and guidance on writing better applications. So I'd say if there is one thing that I'd like you to remember from the entire conversation today is OWASP, right? This is one of the best resources you have to become a better engineer who can focus on security. All right. So what I'd like to do now is, towards the end of today's presentation, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about how can you get into cybersecurity, right? I'm pretty sure that most of the people that you know, most of your friends, most of your seniors do not have jobs in cybersecurity when they start off. And that is true. Today, I would say 90% of cybersecurity professionals did not start in cybersecurity. And what I'll do now is kind of show you what the career path could look like. You could start off as a developer, right? You could pretty much get your first job as a developer. And as you are going through your development career, the first year or two, I would encourage you to focus on the secure software development lifecycle. Make security your thing, right? As you get onto that development team, you might be the junior most person on that team, but if you prioritize security, I guarantee you that you will be noticed, and people will say, yeah, you're a great developer, you think about security. So participate in the secure software development lifecycle. There's a great opportunity for you, even as an entry-level developer, to make a huge impact. You can then make security your specialty, and you can become a product security architect. You might be writing a product for a bank, but you could be the security architect for that product. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a few years, but that is a very valid career path for you. Now, you might decide that you have a great idea, and you could also, after having spent a couple of years in a software company writing secure software, you might find a security problem for which you could write a security product. You could develop a security product and take it to market. The other starting point, which is very common, is being a QA engineer, right? As you are a QA engineer, you're testing functionality, make security your specialty, and explore opportunities to become a penetration tester. If you're a QA engineer, you will be a fantastic penetration tester. Once you know about penetration testing and where security vulnerabilities are, options open up again for you. You can go and develop a security product because you know about the problem statement. You could also move to information security. After having a career in pen testing, you could become an information security engineer who's implementing security controls. And that in itself is a very rewarding career. You can spend the next 20, 25 years growing in information security and becoming the chief information security officer for a large company. Today, every time you come across a new company, I want you to go to their website. I want you to go to their About Us page, and I want you to notice the Chief Information Security Officer on their About Us page. Chief Information Security Officer is now one of the most important roles in the industry. Now, let's say that you had a great idea and you started developing a security product. Maybe it goes well, maybe it doesn't, but you have the experience and you can start exploring opportunities in companies that produce security products. Think about Okta, think about Palo Alto Networks, think about McAfee. These are all companies that produce security products. If you're a product security architect, you can move to an R&D role in security products as well. Who knows, your security product takes off and you can have an entrepreneurial life. That's a possibility as well. If you're a product security architect, you can continue down that road and have a very fruitful career, and you could spend the rest of your career in product security. Think about companies like Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, LIC, State Bank of India. All these companies are producing software, and they need people who can help them produce and architect secure software. So you can have a very rich career in product security in all kinds of companies. If you decide to become a part of a cybersecurity company that is producing cybersecurity products like Okta, like Auth0, like Palo Alto Networks, you can have a very successful career in security product companies as well. So what I tried to do here was kind of give you a very high level picture of where your career can be if you decide to pursue cybersecurity as an option. You might also decide to say, you know what, I've done my undergraduate degree. I want to do some postgraduate study in security. You could do that. And all of these options are open for you again. Now, having said that, maybe some of you have a question in your mind. And the question is, Setu, what was your journey? How did you get into cybersecurity? And interestingly enough, my cybersecurity journey has been slightly different. And the point I'm trying to make is the previous slide, this is just a rough map, right? I just want you to know that once you invest time in cybersecurity, the outcome is always great, right? There is such a great demand, you are going to have success. But this is not the only journey that you may end up taking. My personal journey was very different. For the first 12 years of my career, I did some development, I did some quality control, I moved to product management, I moved to sales, I moved back to product management, but I had nothing to do with security up until 2014. In 2014, I got an opportunity to work on a security product as a product manager. And that's where I learned about cybersecurity and gained all the skills that I asked you to focus on. From there, I moved to corporate development and moved back to product management. So my journey in cybersecurity has been slightly different, and I'm pretty sure that yours will be very different as well. But security has been a very fruitful and an exciting career option for me, and I'm looking forward to what I'll be doing next. Now, I've given you a lot of information today. We will share these slides with you as well. What I'd like to do as I end today's conversation is leave you with some life hacks. Life is difficult. Many times you don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. So there are some life hacks that I want to leave you with. Go to LinkedIn and just search for penetration tester or any cybersecurity role that you aspire to be. Look for entry-level jobs, and you will get hits. Go through a handful of these job postings and read about the job postings and look for what kinds of skills they want. Make a list of those skills and then go invest time in learning those skills. That's one life hack that I strongly encourage. The other option is you go read everything there is to read about security. It's going to take you 5 years. And most of it you may not even use. I recommend that you go take a more focused approach. Go to LinkedIn, enter the role you want to be or you aspire to be. Look for entry-level job openings. Read the job posting. Look for the skills they want and go focus on learning those skills. I think that's a great way of becoming very relevant in cybersecurity, and not just in cybersecurity, in whatever you want to do in your career. The other life hack is there are hundreds of free resources that you can use to learn and experiment. GitHub provides free security. Google Cloud, free security. AWS, free security. Azure, free security. Right? You can learn about security for each one of these platforms at zero cost. All you need to do is invest your time. The last piece that I'll leave you with today is think about Kubernetes. Kubernetes is taking over the world. Kubernetes is the operating system for modern applications. If you have Kubernetes skills, and in particular, if you have Kubernetes security skills, nothing can hold you back. Again, Kubernetes is free of cost. All of the documentation is available, open source. You can try it out and you can learn. With that said, Padma ma'am, I'm going to turn this back to you. Hopefully that was useful to all the people who participated. I think we've got a few more minutes and I can take questions if there are any.
Thanks, Setu, for that very insightful and resourceful session. I'm sure anybody and everybody who's attended this will probably get a few pointers on how to make a career in cybersecurity. The floor is now open for questions. Participants can unmute yourselves or maybe leave the question in the chat window.
There are actually a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is from Pawan, is talking about multi-factor authentication. Is MFA secure? MFA is as secure as the people who use MFA. The whole idea of MFA is that you have multiple modes of authentication, but at the end of the day, the authentication is done by a human. So if the human is not acting securely, MFA is not secure. But my point is MFA is the right thing to do. You should implement MFA in products that you develop. More importantly, in products that you use, whether it's your bank, whether it's any other application, make sure you sign up for MFA. I also see a question from Mangalwadi sir. Hello, sir. It's been a while. Your question is, are there any specific courses that we can introduce in our curriculum? Yes, I think there are. There's a company that I know, it's called Secure Code Warrior. They do a lot of work in training corporates. I think there are a lot of courses that we can borrow from them and look at the work that they've already done and incorporate in the program at GIT. I'd be happy to personally help in whatever way I can to set up a course or come and deliver a course. Always happy to do that. But yes, Mangalore sir, I think today in 2022, there are specific courses that we should introduce in our curriculum.
Any more questions from the audience?
If there are no more questions, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You should be able to find me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to be a resource, not just for cybersecurity, but as you go on in your careers, happy to be a resource to help you.
Yeah, I think there's another question, Setu, in the chat window. I'll just read it up for you.
Yeah, it's about
Manish Verma. Yes.
Yeah, it's about dynamic MFA, biometric, code generator, or something else. Manish, the important thing is having multi-factor, right? If you read about multi-factor, it's about three things, right? What you know, who you are, and what you have, right? What you know is a secret. Who you are is a fingerprint, a biometric, and what you have is a device or access to another computer. So MFA is about combining these three things, right? Challenging the end user. What do you know? Do you have a password? What do you have? And what you are, right? Do you have access to a phone? So I can send you a text or an OTP. And what do you what do you have on you? Do you have a biometric like a fingerprint or a face scan? So the important thing is to combine these three things. And like I said, the weakest link is the human. right? I'll tell you an example. I have a bank in India, ICICI. They do multi-factor authentication, but I have my father's phone number for SMS. So every time I want to log in, I enter my password, I call my dad. My dad gives me the PIN, and I enter the PIN. Wrong thing to do, right? I shouldn't be doing that. But my point is, man in the middle is the biggest risk from a cybersecurity point of view. All this stuff that we're building in cybersecurity is to make sure that the person in the middle does not make a mistake. All right. With that said, ma'am, any other questions? Anything else that I can do to help?
Setu, there are plans at JIT to start up a center of excellence for cybersecurity. I think the efforts have already started and in the process. So I think in case of any kind of help or in any case of any kind of assistance, we'll definitely revert back to you on that. We would very much like you to be on board for setting up the center of excellence at JIT.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I assume that there are no more questions. So on behalf of the entire organizing team and on behalf of KLS JIT, I profusely thank Setu, who has taken time off on a Sunday early morning and delivered this session. Thanks once again, Setu, for that resourceful and very insightful session.